Hello and welcome to In Touch with Durham County. I'm your host, Deborah Craig-Ray, Chief Communications Officer. We are pleased to bring you conversations with our Durham County Department leaders. Today we will focus on our Register of Deeds office, which serves as the custodian and manager of various public records. And of course, there are many other tasks that we will discuss. But I am pleased to introduce you to the Honorable Sharon A. Davis, Durham County Register of Deeds. Hello and welcome.
Thank you, Deborah, for having me. I'm glad to be here today.
I know we were just talking about it's probably been a little while since we've had you on the show.
I want to say it's probably been 6 or 7 years. And I want to say it was right after I was elected in 2016 that you first had me on the show.
Great. And you have done quite a few wonderful things since then. And I'm excited about our conversation today.
As I tell people, I like my job. So I don't mind coming to work and doing what I have to do because I really like what I do.
That's wonderful, wonderful. Well, we are excited because we're going to spend our whole conversation today talking with Register of Deeds Davis and hearing what's going on now, how they managed to get through COVID, and some of the other projects and tasks that they are working on. So it's going to be a good show. So you ready to get going?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take this away.
Well, first of all, I want to note that you are one of our department heads that's a little different from our normal department heads. You are an elected department head, and we actually had the sheriff on last month, another elected department head. Tell us about being an elected official and a department head.
It's not the perfect world, because you really want someone in the office that understands the functions and what we do daily. But by statute, we're elected every 4 years, and that's the part of the job I don't like. I don't like the political part, but I like what I do daily. Mm-hmm. But of course, because if it is elected, I do go out every 4 years and meet the public. And I think the most special person I ever met was Sharon Davis at the North Library the other day. She came running out when I came by I was, campaigning, mm-hmm. and she ran out, "You're the other Sharon Davis."
Okay.
And we had that, minute where we, talked about it. Mm-hmm. But the campaigning's okay, but I really would like to keep the job where it's someone that understands all of the functions instead of just a politician that wants to be elected.
Okay, so now let's go back a little bit because I've known you quite a while.
Yes.
And you originally worked in that office prior to running for the elected part of it.
You're right.
So how did you start with Durham County and what did you first do?
I started as a temp
Mm-hmm.
in the Register of Deeds on the third floor of this building before it was renovated.
Uh-huh.
And I came in, I just thought it was going to be a temporary job until I found out what I really wanted to do. And an opening came up and I applied, and I've been here ever since. So now it's been almost 36 years that I have been in the Register of Deeds office. Mm-hmm. But again, like I said, I started as a temp, and I tell people I moved up the ladder, a temp to a deputy to a staff assistant, then to assistant. And then when our prior register, Willie Covington, told me that he was going to retire, I cried like a baby because I was like, what am I going to do? And he said, you know the job, you can do the job. All you've got to do is go out there, work the crowds a little, and get elected. And I was lucky that I had one person that ran against me, but we did fine. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I've been happy ever since.
Well, that's awesome. So what our residents actually have is a person who knows the job, who is also the elected official. So that's definitely a bonus.
No, you're right. It is a bonus. And I think that's probably why it was easy for me to get elected, because there are those attorneys and other officials that they want someone in there who knows what to do. Not someone that you have to teach what to do, mm-hmm. but someone who knows what to do.
Okay.
And that's me.
That sounds great. So the other thing I wanted to mention is I know you are called a Register of Deeds, but I've heard some different titles for this position. I think I've heard a Recorder of Deeds, a Registrar, a Clerk of Records, a Deed Registry Registrar. So kind of what's the history of this position?
Well, it was a statutory position from the early days of North Carolina. And it's always been called the Register of Deeds here in North Carolina, even though people will refer to me as the registrar.
Okay.
And then in other jurisdictions, you may have the Clerk of Records, those other titles that you mentioned.
Yeah.
But North Carolina, we're known as the office is the Register of Deeds. The person is the registrar. But we kind of like the way it is.
Absolutely. That's what we know. So let's first talk about your staff, and then we'll sort of talk about the different tasks that you all have.
So currently I have 19 on my staff. I had someone who retired back in December, but S&T has taken over that role, so, we're not missing a beat. But I have 19. And we have basically 3 divisions in our office. We have the real estate division, the vital records division, and then as a support for the real estate division, we have indexing and verification. So 3 different groups, but we all, basically support each other with different things we do.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I know one of the things that you are responsible for basically is maintaining and recording property documents. Can you talk about that a little bit?
You're correct. I tell people that we are the entry level into county government, because when someone purchases a property, it comes to our office. From our office, it goes to the tax office, and they will determine basically the ownership of that parcel based upon the records that they have. If a developer is doing a new development, they will bring the map or plat into our office, and we'll record that, and then the tax office will see can divide their parcels up based on the document that's entry level into our office. So we're the first step for a lot of things here in Durham County on the real estate side. And then if we went to the vital records side, it's basically the same thing. We have birth records, so when someone is born, that birth record is sent in. When they decide to get married, they come in and get a marriage license. And unfortunately, when someone passes, we have those death certificates. So I like to tell people that we deal with everybody from birth to the grave and everything between.
Right, absolutely. And so another task that I know you guys do, and I think this is fairly new, you issue passports.
We do issue passports 1 day a week. I tell people it's a revenue generating document and a service that we provide, because the Postal Services provides it also. But we do a couple, every Wednesday. We're not opening it up, where we're doing it daily, but we set aside appointments on Wednesday and we'll take care of them during that time.
Very good. Yeah, that's great. I remember when you all started doing that.
Right.
People were really excited. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm familiar with the fact that your office really provides outstanding customer service. I mean, we do surveys about how citizens are satisfied with various services, and you all do really well in the customer service situation. I've actually experienced having one of your employees. I've brought a citizen in and just seen how they would walk through and how they were patient and they would help the citizen get what they need. So that is really outstanding. Now, I know a lot of you all's work can be handled remotely also. Talk about what you can do in person and what can you do remotely.
So in the real estate section of the office, we can bring documents in remotely. And currently, I think we're at probably 89% of our documents are sent in through a module where we pull it up, record it, just like if the person was in front of us. So that still leaves 10% of the documents that will come in over the counter. And we have some local attorneys that, are right around. They'll just bring their documents in instead of submitting them electronically. And of course, the attorneys from the outer counties, they love that we can do it electronically because that means they don't have to come down to downtown Durham and find someplace to park.
Right.
On our Vital Records side, we do provide online services where someone could go in and request a birth, death, or marriage license through a portal that we have. So we can do that. And so with that portal, there's still things that we can do at home on the Vital Records side because you have to process all of those documents. And then once they come in, we have to verify that the information is correct, scan a copy in, and then we're able to just go on the computer and pull it up when somebody comes. But on both sides of the office, we do remote work, and this is probably just something we started doing when the pandemic was here. We divided the office into 2 teams. We have A and B teams on both sides, and that way we are able, if somebody gets exposed to COVID on one team, the other team's able to come back in and take care of all of the duties while the other team is at home quarantining.
Very smart. And speaking of COVID, I did want to ask you about that. How did your office change its work during COVID? Because I remember when we first shut the county down in 2020, we were getting all kinds of calls and emails from folks needing to access your services.
And you're right. But unfortunately, right when COVID hit was the same time that we had the malware attack.
You're right.
And that right there created a burden on our paper system that we were really using at that time. So we had to come up with another way to provide some of those same services. So in the real estate side, we were lucky that we had a standalone system called Sassy FileAway. FileAway and Sassy, they work together. But we were able to use a standalone computer, file all of our documents on that computer, and then once the system came back up, we were able to load them to our system and without a beat. And Sassy would allow people to actually look up some of the documents. But then that's when the governor decided that we were essential personnel and we had to be there. But some of our counterparts on the state were not there because all of our records had been scanned and were at archives. Because archives wasn't open, they couldn't get those things that they needed. But we were there every day in our, like I said, in our A and B teams doing what we had to do. And at the very beginning, it was treacherous, it was hard, because we had attorneys sitting in the lobby waiting to record stuff because we weren't able to do it electronically. But we got by that and was able to just proceed on. Of course, though, with the Vital Records, there were laws that were in place that allowed us for marriages to do it remotely with a camera. So we were able to issue the marriage license that way. You still could order a certificate, with the portal that we have. And then we just had certain times where people would just come up to the counter, show us their IDs, and we would, give them the copy that we already prepared and that they already paid for. But we made it work. We did have to change the way we filed some things because, you're so used to doing things electronically and not dealing with a piece of paper. But because of the malware attack and part of the system was down, we had to go back to the books. But then that's what we have. That's what we're required to have.
Mm-hmm.
We're required to have the books and the documents available to the public in whatever format we can.
And see, that's why your office is so important, because you have those records.
Right.
Well, we are just really grateful that you all found a way through when we were going through the pandemic. Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. No, the pandemic was hard,
Yeah.
especially that day one of the attorneys called the police on me because he said we didn't have everybody 6 feet apart.
Okay.
And, we had to make some adjustments, but we were able to move forward.
Very good.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm enjoying our conversation. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and we can continue our conversation with our Register of Deeds, Sharon Davis. Stay with us.
Gun violence has affected me in that 2 of my children were shot and killed, and I always say they were murdered because their lives were taken, and it has impacted me all my life, and I think it always will.
I took some students on a field trip when I was teaching. It was my first year teaching, and one of the students could not afford to go. While on the field trip, I got a call from the assistant principal, and she said, Reginald was just shot and killed, and I just wanted you to know. Reginald was 12 years old, and he actually jumped on top of a 4-year-old. They were outside playing, and there was a drive-by. The bullet was meant for someone else, but a stray bullet hit him. This was a kid that I just got into the band, in my band class, and I was able to engage him, and he was enjoying himself. He was able to be a kid again. But because of the environment that I couldn't control, it took his life, all because he couldn't afford to go on a field trip. That inspired me to make sure that whenever I took kids on field trips anymore, I would raise the money so that wouldn't be an excuse. It is a life or death matter, and I saw it happen personally.
I really want people to start speaking up. I want people to advocate, and not just advocate to us. I want them to advocate to the legislature. I think we can sit here and talk about hopes and prayers all day, but what we really need is plans and policy.
People are going to keep their guns, but one of the things they can do is ensure that they have the safety mechanism so that children that visit them or their own children don't have access to them.
While it is important to talk to your children about firearm safety in an age-appropriate way, proper storage of firearms is always the responsibility of the adults in the home.
Firearms should be unloaded, locked, and the ammunition stored separately from the gun. Remember, gun safety is an ongoing responsibility. By prioritizing the secure storage and taking informed precautions, you can prevent accidents and keep your loved ones safe.
Durham County is offering to our residents free gun locks and gun lock boxes to help you secure your firearms and keep your family safe.
Children play with guns, and if they pull the trigger, somebody dies.
Please visit decopublichealth.org or call 919-560-7765.
Welcome back to In Touch. We're having an awesome conversation with our Durham County Register of Deeds, Sharon Davis. You ready to continue our conversation?
Oh, I'm enjoying this, so let's go.
So I know that there is an organization in North Carolina. It's called the North Carolina Association of Register of Deeds. And I guess there is also a national or international one also. Tell me about those professional organizations.
Okay, so the North Carolina Association of Register of Deeds, or NCARD as we call it, it's a group of all 100 counties where we join together to talk about best practices for our office. We talk about new laws that may be implemented, and we discuss how we're going to implement some of the new laws if they ever come across from the legislature. So we got all 100 counties that are a member of that organization, and I have been blessed that I was voted in as president about 6 years ago and went through the ranks. I started out as historian, secretary, up to second vice, first vice, and then I had my year in the spotlight.
Yeah.
So I was the leader of the organization, and currently I'm the past president. But during my year of service, we really, if the legislature's not in session, we have a nice slow year. So I was lucky. We had a nice slow year. There wasn't anything that they asked us to do or put into law. The only thing they wanted us to do is to come up with some way to notify the citizens if there was maybe potential fraud that maybe was filed in our office. So right now we have a system that we call Fraud Guard, where if the customers, the citizens sign up, it will notify them when a document is filed under their names. At that point in time, we ask them to look at the document and determine, oh, yeah, this was something I know that was going to be filed. And if not, we then recommend them to contact an attorney and have them to look into it to see if it was possibly a case of fraud.
That's great because, you know, people are oftentimes in an unfortunate situation of having things done that they didn't know about regarding their property. So that's wonderful.
And that's correct. Now, we've only had, in the past few years, we've only had one that we are aware, and this was a person, I hate to say the word, sovereign citizen, who filed a deed. He filed it from the bank to him, and then he actually moved into the parcel, and then when the bank found out, they were able to use legal action to remove him.
Very good.
But we don't see many of those cases, and we're actually happy about that.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
if I could get the sovereign citizens to stop sending documents in for us to record them, but it appears that that is something that is initiated through the prison system. It's something going around there, and we'll get those documents every now and then, and sometimes they'll even, have a fingerprint with blood, and of course we can't accept that.
Yeah.
But it's just something that they do because they have heard that that will change their name and protect their rights.
People just don't have any idea the types of things you all have to deal with.
You're right, and that's one of those odd documents. Another odd document that we deal with is certificate of removal of graves. And the first time I was exposed to that certificate was in my early days in the office. Someone from the tax office came down and said they wanted to find out where their family member had been moved.
Right.
Because when 147 came in, there was a cemetery that was in that way where they had removed those graves, and we were able to find it, locate it, and it tells you where the graves were and where they remove the graves too.
Yeah.
So we have had several of those over the years. It's usually when there's a new subdivision that's being developed and they want to remove those
And I know every
graves.
now and then we'll get something in public information about that, and we're able to help them out. Yeah.
Now, we also handle military discharge records, what we call DD-214s, and that's when the veteran is, I've lost it. When the veteran gets out of the service, discharged, they bring that document in where we can keep it for them until they need it. And that's one of those restricted documents we have. The public can't get to it, just the veteran or the Veteran Service Office cannot pick up those documents.
Guaranteed. Good idea. Good idea. So there's a project that I know your staff has been working on for a while, and it's gained some interest. It's gained some news coverage. It's called Hacking into History. Can you describe a little bit about that project and why it's important?
I always laugh when someone asks me about hacking in history. Mr. Covington was a prior register of deeds, believed in managing by walking around. So one day I was walking through our deed vault, and there was a young lady there, and she was looking in the books, and she said she was trying to find some restricted covenants. And took a book out, flipped, found some, showed them to her, and then she explained what they wanted to do. I think she was with North Carolina Central, the library at Central, but it was the library at Central, a group called Data Works, and Robinson Bradshaw law firm. So it was several different groups that decided to start this type of project. So we were able to provide them on tape with our documents, and now they have people who are going through those documents, indexing them with the restricted covenants. And so, like I said, there's several groups doing that. But now they've through with the first phase. They've done most of the indexing. Now there's actually been some community engagement. They've gone out to several of these communities and talked with several of the owners of these properties where those restrictions are on the properties,
Right.
and explained to them what they were, but they also explained to them that they're not enforceable now. And a lot of people didn't know that they were on their properties.
Right.
But they are, and so now that project is slowly ending. There's a few more public information sections that will be held where, they continue to talk about it.
Yeah, well, we definitely want to make sure that we continue to help amplify that message, because that was an important time in our history. People need to understand what our communities were like during a certain period and have access to that information.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. What other community engagement projects are you working on? We have about 2 minutes left.
Okay, so we actually work with Veteran Services maybe 1 or 2 times a year with Project Stand Down, where the veterans come in for different services. So we set up our little kit. We call it the Grab and Go kit, but we set it up, and if the veterans need a copy of their birth record while they're there, we're able to, print out that certified copy, or if they need a copy of their DD-214, we can deal with that too. We've also done Veterans Fair with our little kit also, where we go in and just really help them. And if it's not something that we have, because I'm a member of that in-card association, we're able to contact the other counties and, try to get help to get that veteran that copy that they need in order to, for them to go ahead forward to get different services. One of the last things we did last year was we provided hygiene bags to the homeless population. One day a week, they're down the street at the little park.
Oh, yeah.
And we were able to, the funeral homes were able to donate items, and we were able to put the bags together, and we went down there and donated those to the homeless.
Wonderful.
So it's not just like we stay in the office all the time. There are things that we do that, are outside our normal activities, but we all have to give back.
Absolutely. Well, again, I just want to thank you so much for spending this half hour with us, sharing all the wonderful things that you and your staff do, and our citizens are indeed grateful for your service.
And I was a little leery about coming, but I've enjoyed the last half hour.
Well,
and thank you
good.
for having me.
Absolutely. And we won't wait so many years to get you back on.
Okay, that'll be fine.
And that does it for In Touch. We thank you for joining us today. Please be well, and we will see you next time on In Touch with Durham County. Cheers.